Welcome to Podnutz Daily for June. Oh, man. It's the 3rd. Okay, June 3rd, 2009, episode number 174. I'm getting really bad. If you listen to the past couple shows, I'm getting really bad at memorizing the date and the show. So, got a net framework error on just a normal PC desktop computer. I think it was like an HP or something like that. When we were doing a cleanup, I think. It wasn't a reinstall. It was a cleanup. Getting a net framework error. Well, I hate to do it because it takes forever, but if you get a net framework error, what I would recommend is just going to Windows Updates and downloading the latest .NET update, which is like a service pack for .NET. Usually handles all net framework errors. Unfortunately, it takes about an hour, half an hour to load, maybe. Okay, Rocker says he's getting no audio. Is anybody else getting no audio? Okay, do it or Geek has audio. Okay, yesterday Monday I talked about the X300 IBM or Lenovo ThinkPad X300. That was giving me a hard time. Door-to-Door Geek actually sent me the driver for the actual hard drive, which is a funky little SATA hard drive. It's got a strange connector on it. And Door-to-Door Geek, I didn't get a chance to respond to the email, but I'll just tell you now, and everybody else. I didn't install that driver, but I read the instructions that were part of the driver just to see what I was getting into. And that actually solved the problem for me. Like an idiot, I knew this from working with Dells. In the BIOS, you can set the SATA, either the SATA controller or I think it's a SATA controller, to be in a mode called compatibility mode or AHCI mode. I can't remember the abbreviation. And if you put it in compatibility mode, it actually allows you to use normal generic mass storage drivers to install, like you run a Windows XP or Vista installation on it. So that's what I did. Once I changed the compatibility mode, the disk I created with my driver, I actually slipstreamed a mass storage driver pack into a Windows XP Professional installation on a Dell disk. I know that was a mouthful, but I put the mass storage controller driver pack and slipstreamed that into an XP installation, and then it did see the drive. Now here's the cool thing: once I ran, because I thought I had actually deleted the recovery partition because it was not working after I tried to do a system recovery using the recovery partition. I know I kind of jumped the gun on that, and I shouldn't have assumed I deleted it, but I think I was just frustrated and mad. But what I did was I pressed the blue ThinkVantage button when I started it up originally, and I tried to do a system recovery using the recovery partition that comes with these $4,000 computers. And once I ran that, it actually never was able to load into the recovery the system recovery partition ever again, because there was an option that said delete all the partitions on the drive as part of the system recovery, which is kind of like a catch-22. But I chose that option to delete all the partitions, and that's why I thought I erased it. But it turns out I didn't. Once I tried loading XP from a Dell disk, and this probably has happened to you guys a couple times when you try to run install XP. You know the part where you get XP going, or you get the setup program going. It starts copying all the files off the disk, off your XP installation disk, onto the hard drive, and the little yellow bars going across. Well, when the yellow bar gets to the end, sometimes it says, this is actually, no. Here's what, it's right before that point. Windows actually checks the hard drive before it starts copying files. And you get the same yellow bar. It's the same screen. It checks before it starts loading files just to see if the hard drive is able to accept the files. And sometimes it does a quick little repair on the hard drive and says, okay, Windows just did maintenance on this hard drive. You're going to have to reboot before you can install Windows. So that happened on this machine. So I'm thinking, wow, it did maintenance on the hard drive, which means the hard drive was corrupted somehow, and this apparently fixed it. According to Windows and the setup program, it apparently fixed it. So I said, let me just try now pressing the blue ThinkVantage button, which takes you into the recovery partition, and see if that works. So I did that again. I started the computer up, I pressed the blue button, got into recovery partition, chose system recovery again, and this time it went through smooth. It actually did the system recovery. So trying to install XP off of that disk repaired the hard drive and I guess apparently the recovery partition enough that I was able now to use the recovery partition, which I guess I didn't delete. Yeah, I definitely didn't delete it because it worked. So that's how I fixed that problem. Kind of a strange way of doing the repair, but just by trying to install XP, it repaired the drive enough that I could run the recovery partition. Now, I'll get later onto another recovery partition story, but we have this desktop that came in today. It was yesterday. It was an HP desktop, right? And the customer was saying there's no graphics. No graphics. It doesn't boot up. All that happens is one fan spins when you hit the power button and the lights come on. But no video, nothing. So we opened it up. We pressed the power button and we looked at it, and it was true. The case fan wasn't spinning. The power supply was operational, and the CPU fan was spinning. All the LEDs were on, but no video. So we're looking in the computer, and I go, Dad, tell me what's wrong with that video card. And he looks, and apparently what was wrong with the video card, this is nuts. It was a PCIe video card. And it was actually, you know how you insert cards in like PCI slots and AGP slots and PCIe slots? You got to put that one little screw on and screw it in tight so it doesn't pop out. Well, that screw was in there. The only problem was there was no PCI slot. It was a PCIe slot. It was a PCIe video card screwed in, sitting above where a PCIe slot should be, and there was no slot. So it was just floating above the motherboard, basically. I do not know who installed that, and I still can't tell if the PCIe slot was ripped off on the motherboard or just was never there, because it had all the solder points where that slot should be, but somebody installed this card into a computer with no slot and just screwed it in. Well, that's what you get, right? That's what you see sometimes. Well, we obviously didn't use that video card anymore. We just went with the onboard graphics, and it didn't matter. The same thing was happening. It was definitely a motherboard problem. The only thing we could do is pull out all the PCI cards and pull out the PCIe video card that was just sitting there doing nothing, probably shorting something out on the motherboard because it was touching a coil. And we replaced the RAM, tested the power supply. So we had good RAM, good power supply in there. And you can test a computer with a power supply, a motherboard, a processor, and RAM. Those are the only 4 things you need. You should see a video come up on. You should see video come up on the screen when you boot that up, even if there's no hard drive or no CD drives connected. So that's what we did. We switched out the RAM to make sure the RAM was good, and it turns out it's either the processor or the motherboard. 98%